Hello everyone, class is in session. I'm your teacher for today, Jack the Jobber from Cultaholic.com, and it's time to look at Monday Night Raw from, I believe, Miami, Florida. Ooh, how exotic, how exciting. I imagine Miami seems exciting to those who live outside of Miami, like myself, but for everybody in Miami and the Miami area, it's not quite as special. It's probably just like Newcastle, but with more speedboats and drugs. No. So let's take a look at Raw graded from today, from last night. Oh my word. So we start the show with Roman Reigns, who does come out and predictably calls out Brock Lesnar, who was scheduled to be on the show last night. And Roman Reigns goes, you know what? You can go to UFC and run up on Daniel Cormier and talk trash to his face, but you won't do it to me. I respect Bobby Lashley. I don't respect you, Brock Lesnar. What are you talking about, Roman? He's beaten you twice in the past few months. Roman is then met not by Brock Lesnar but by Paul Heyman, who comes out and says what all of us have been thinking, the whole definition of insanity thing. Insanity is when you try the same thing and expect the same result. And you know what? That makes a lot of sense, to be honest. Heyman says that Brock's not going to come out right now to face Roman. He's going to come out if and when he so desires. And Roman says that's cool, but when he goes back to UFC, he'll be going back as Roman Reigns' bitch. And he said it all sexy like that. It was really weird. I got a little bit confused. I was like, maybe it'll be fun being Roman Reigns' bitch. The way he said it, honestly, he was like, he's going back Roman Reigns' bitch. Oh. I was like, Jesus. So backstage, Paul Heyman goes up to Lesnar and goes, you know what, maybe you should go out and, confront him and stuff. And do you not see what he said? And Lesnar goes, I don't watch the show. And then Heyman goes, have a look on my phone here. And he just chucks the phone across the room, sits back and continues to read a magazine, does Brock Lesnar. That magazine cover was very exploitable indeed, and the internet immediately turned it into a meme. So just a few examples of what Lesnar could have potentially been reading with the aid of Photoshop. White Dwarf, the Warhammer magazine, which I can't imagine Brock Lesnar reading. Nintendo Power, old school Nintendo magazine, lovely. Avoid Eye Contact Monthly, and my favorite, huge anime titties. So what to give this segment? I went back and forth in my head a lot about which grade to give this. I'm going to give it a C+, which sounds harsh, but I like that Brock Lesnar can sit backstage and be an effective heel without really doing anything, just by reading a magazine. But at the same time, this is the same old, same old. Roman's continued confidence is absolutely maddening. There is no character development at all. He hasn't learnt anything. Heyman was good, but I mean, it's an entire angle built on the fact that we're supposed to hate one guy because he doesn't care about wrestling. But if he doesn't care about wrestling and he's the big cool champion, it makes it hard for us to care about wrestling. So you see what I'm saying? Yes. Yeah, C+. I feel a bit harsh about that, but honestly, this was a bit of a nothing segment. Even though Heyman did a good job on the mic, still a bit nothing. Now on to our first match of the night, Constable Baron Corbin, versus Finn Balor. And this was a great segment to watch if you hate Finn Balor. As much as I often make comments about how I hate Finn Balor because he's so bloody handsome, I do actually enjoy watching him in the ring. I enjoy him as a wrestler. This match was weird though. Like, he didn't really get a chance to fully show off what he can do. Baron Corbin just beat him down methodically for 20 minutes, won clean, and then continued to beat him up after the match, placing his head on the entrance, on the crowd barrier, and just dropping elbows on it. Not like that. His technique was far better than that. I'm going to give this a C+ because although the match was probably better than C+ quality, it was long. It was about 20 minutes long. There was a lot of methodical heat sort of on the heel segments where, Baron Corbin was just getting one over on Finn and getting one over on Finn, and we were waiting for Finn to get back into it, and then he lost the match clean, and it was a little bit like, ugh. It was a bit hard to watch, to be honest. And also, I don't like the fact that this feud's continuing, purely because at Extreme Rules, this was the match on the card that I was least looking forward to at the time, and that hasn't really changed since. Next up, Natalya versus Alicia Fox, the beautiful Alicia Fox. She's back on the Raw roster. I think she was injured for a little bit, but she's returned now. And basically, this match was very, very similar to one we had last week, where it was Natalya versus Mickie James. This time, Alexa's kind of gone, I need another sidekick, because Mickey's on the shelf for a little bit. Alicia Fox get in here, and that's sort of the build-up. This was one of those matches where neither Natalya nor Alicia Fox could, when you watch a match and the two wrestlers just don't seem to be feeling it or clicking at all. They sort of hit the ropes and then come off with less speed than they hit the ropes at, and they sort of run into each other. And it was one of those ones, if you know what I mean. But it had a strange and interesting finish. Basically, Alicia Fox taunted Ronda Rousey on the outside. Ronda tried to get involved. The referee was like, nuh-uh. That left Alexa Bliss open to punch Natalya in the face from the outside through the ring ropes. And then that led to Alicia Fox kicking her in the face and getting the victory over Natalya. The heels then celebrated, and then Ronda Rousey was like, no, enough's enough. Ronda got in the ring and hit Alicia Fox with one of those big twisting, sort of not Samoan drops, but kind of almost an F5 back suplex kind of things. You know, the big twisty thing she does, it's great. And then chased Alexa to the outside, and then Alicia Fox turned into the Terminator. Alicia Fox, having taken a big move from Ronda Rousey, who battered Triple H at WrestleMania 34, then rose to her feet like a goddamn cyborg, went outside the ring, picked up Ronda Rousey by the legs, and swung her from side to side like Nia Jax does to Alexa Bliss into the barricade. Like, Ronda fought her off eventually, but what is going on? Is Alicia Fox suddenly the Brock Lesnar of the women's division? This was mental. I'm going to give this a D because the match was sloppy, the post-match stuff was alright, and then Alicia Fox decided to become invincible, so I'm going to take off a little bit, just out of sheer confusion, I'm going to take off a little grade for that. So this gets a D. Next up, until I just checked my notes there, and until I did that, I forgot that this bit happened on the show, but it was cringy, lads. It was cringy, so just strap yourselves in. Prepare for the cringe. So last week, if you missed it, Elias kept trying to come out and promote his album that has just dropped, and kept getting interrupted by various different people, entrance music, that sort of thing. And one of those people who interrupted him, probably inadvertently to be fair, was Bobby Lashley. Now this week, Elias has come out and solely blamed Bobby Lashley for that. He said it's only Bobby Lashley's fault. I think because they're going to start a feud between Elias and Bobby Lashley, but don't tell anyone, it was quite subtle. Lashley then got in the ring with Elias and went, you know what, I'm a big fan of yours. I did not mean to dumb down the promotion of your album, and I like to sing with you. And Elias went, whoa, 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 I don't usually do this, but yes, let's do it. And I was there going, no, because I don't look at Bobby Lashley and his mannerisms and the way that he is and just imagine that he's actually an excellent singer. But I was proven totally right. He's not an excellent singer at all. They sang Rockin' Robin, and it was the weirdest thing I've ever... It was so strange. Like, Lashley was singing, ooh, Rockin' Robin, and then would hold the microphone over here and go, right, Robin. I was like, what's going on? It was like something from a Will Ferrell movie, like when it's deliberately awkward. Then Elias jumped in because he's a heel, and Bobby fought him off because he's really strong and the babyface. Man, that would have been fine in a nutshell, just that little bit, not all the bit before. So it gets a D-. Also, I'm not particularly interested in this feud. I like Elias. I'm not the biggest fan of Bobby Lashley. I can admit that he has good matches on occasion, like the one against Roman Reigns, but I don't really want to see him clash with Elias because he's probably going to steamroll him. And I was sad when it happened to Sami Zayn, and I'm going to be sad when it happens to Elias. D- for the segment. Next up, Braun Strowman versus Jinder Mahal. But before the match, we saw Kevin Owens backstage talking to Corbin, and his logic was absolutely impeccable. He had strategy in mind. He was going, look, Baron, I'm quite worried that because Brock Lesnar's here tonight and Strowman said he was going to cash in on him the next time he saw him, he's going to do that, and then I'm going to lose my shot at the briefcase and therefore lose my shot at the Universal Championship. And Corbin went, there's nothing I can do, I'm afraid. So Kevin went, right, okay, got to take it into my own hands. Interfered in this match between Strowman and Jinder Mahal and tried to steal the briefcase to delay Strowman from cashing it in tonight. That is spot on logic. Love that heel logic. The rest of the segment wasn't that good. Strowman chased him around the ring. Kevin Owens sort of just popped the briefcase off to Singh on the outside. Strowman steamrolled him. Strowman retrieved his own briefcase and then chased Kevin Owens to the back. And I thought, oh, it was almost so good. It was almost so good. Wasn't much of a match. I'm giving this a C- because the match itself was a nothing match. Jinder won by count out. But I really enjoy Kevin Owens' logic, and that's what saved this segment until he threw the briefcase away and continued to run. Maybe he thought he would stop Strowman from chasing him. Maybe he panicked and got a bit scared because Strowman has tried to kill him on multiple occasions, but I thought this was okay. C- for what was essentially a nothing segment, which is pretty good, especially because I liked Owens' logic a lot. Next up, a backstage locker room brawl between Mojo Rawley, who was shouting his mouth off at various superstars in the locker room going, I'm the best. And then Bobby Roode stood up to him. And even though I want Roode to turn heel sooner or later, I liked this. This felt actually really real and authentic and was helped a lot by, I think, Mike Kanellis' tweet. He was in the locker room and had footage of it. And genuinely, the first couple of times you watch it, it could look like a real fight. Like, the footage is kind of grainy. It's awesome. It's actually really good. So yeah, I didn't mind this. Mojo versus Bobby Roode. Not too opposed to that. Let's see how it goes. Overall, this segment gets a B. I liked loads of stuff about it. I liked Mike Kanellis' tweet, which helped to add another layer to it. I liked the action itself. I liked the intensity of it. And I liked how Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder were talking in the background. Edge heads for life, yo. Also, yeah, because it gets a B, this segment is the best thing on the show so far. Wow. A little backstage brawl. Highlight of Raw. Next up, Apollo Crews versus Akam, because obviously the authors of Pain are feuding with Titus Worldwide, and you're correct. this did result in Akam squashing Apollo Crews, and we move on to the next. No, it didn't, lads. No, this match actually, well, I'll just read my notes because it was so brief. Here we go. I'd usually be happy with an Apollo win because the man deserves something, honestly. He does. But not winning in a minute with a roll-up against one half of the most terrifying tag team on the roster. No. D-. Action was fine for what it was. They didn't do any of the moves wrong or anything. But wow, this booking. I think that really says it all. Yeah. Next up, the match that I was personally most looking forward to on this episode of Raw, Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre. And man, these guys have some good chemistry. You can tell that at some point down the line, hopefully, they're going to have a killer pay-per-view match, or will hopefully be allowed to. Rollins won this one via DQ after about 10 minutes. He looked like he was on his way to having the match won, and then Dolph Ziggler got involved and beat him up for the DQ, but Rollins managed to escape the 2-on-1 beatdown, and it was all happy days. This gets a B. It was a good match. I'm really excited for the future between Drew and Seth Rollins, but at the same time, it was a little bit frustrating not for it to have a satisfying ending to the segment, but I can understand why it didn't. You know, this is all about building up to something in the future. Next up, the B team came out, the Raw Tag Team Champions, and had an interview in the ring. Then they were interrupted by Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt, who went, "We're going to keep chasing you forever until we get those belts back." And then they were interrupted by my boys, the Revival. They go hard all day, all night. Don't say, hey. That's American Badass by Kid Rock. The two teams then had a match against each other while the B team sat on commentary, and the Revival won with a shatter machine on Bray Wyatt. Not even on Matt Hardy, who often takes the pinfalls. They had one on Bray Wyatt. While the B team were on commentary going, oh dear, they're pretty good tag team. So yes, really enjoyed this. This gets a B from me. I like how the Revival have positioned themselves. I don't know if they're official #1 contenders, but they've certainly made themselves like the next big title contenders. And I want them to win it and hold it forever for 600 days. Hashtag 600-day Revival title reign. Use the number 600, not the digits, because digits don't work in hashtags. Get on that. Next up, I didn't know what to make of this segment because I want Sasha and Bayley to feud, and I hate that they're friends again. That sounds so mean. But at the same time, if they're going to have them as a team, this is probably the way to do it. Give them good wins, make them, seem really cohesive and stuff, and then hopefully further down the line, we can eventually get that feud. So Sasha and Bayley came out in matching gear, and they were facing Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan of the Riott Squad. The match was a pretty straightforward one. Nothing too special happened, but the action was all solid. It's great to see the Riott Squad continue to come on leaps and bounds, particularly Liv Morgan, who's a little bit less experienced than Sarah Logan, who has, a lot of experience on the independent scene, often with hardcore matches, interestingly. But anyway, Sasha and Bayley won with a nifty, Sasha hit the backstabber into the belly to Bayley, so Bayley to belly. So it was a decent match. The faces won. They seem to be all good right now, and I don't know what to give it as a grade because I'm so conflicted in my heart. I'm going to give it a B- because it was pretty okay, but if they're going to give us Sasha and Bayley, I'm just worried that it's going to be far in the future. Maybe not until Mania, maybe even further, but please at some point, let's please have that, come on. And finally, well, we've got the last segment to talk about, but I also want to talk about two little things that were running concurrently backstage in the build-up to this segment. So first of all, we had the whole thing with Kurt Angle having to kick Roman Reigns out the building, otherwise Lesnar wouldn't come out. So Corbin approached Kurt Angle with a mobile telephone and went, look, Stephanie McMahon's on the other end for you. And Kurt had that look like the Mick Foley look, like the... I used to be a champion, I used to be awesome, and now I'm not. So Stephanie obviously tells Kurt to kick out Roman. Kurt's like, the fans are gonna hate this. Are they? Have you heard the boos whenever Roman goes out? Anyway, Kurt's like, Roman, you've got to leave. And Roman's like, do I? And then Kurt goes, officers, and then the police come, because Roman's Stone Cold Steve Austin for our generation. They go to escort Roman away, and then he turns, Corbin's smirking at him, and he just punches him straight in the face, and Corbin's knocked out on the floor. And the police don't even do anything because the rules don't apply to Roman Reigns. The rules don't apply when you're the big dog. Elsewhere, throughout the night, we see Brock Lesnar being gradually more and more of a dick to Paul Heyman. Obviously, Heyman has been put under pressure by Kurt Angle to get Lesnar out there, otherwise he's going to be fired and his WWE contract's going to be terminated. Lesnar doesn't seem to care too much. It all culminates when he tells Heyman to go and get him a well to medium steak. Medium to well. I'm a medium man personally, and apparently, it's really cool to call people out for having steak well done. I don't know, each to their own, but apparently the internet's taught me that you're not allowed to have steak anything more than bloody rare. So haha Lesnar, I'm more of a man than you are. So finally we get to the final segment. Reigns is not in the building. Heyman's job is at stake. Lesnar is still refusing to come out and has actually grabbed Heyman by the lapels backstage and gone, look, you're not my friend, you just work for me. Heyman comes out. Angle and Corbin are in the ring. Angle goes, Lesnar's got to come out, otherwise you're fired, Paul. Paul goes, look, if you're going to punish anyone, punish Brock Lesnar. It's not my fault. He turns on Brock Lesnar. Then Lesnar comes out just as Heyman's about to be fired, and Heyman's relieved. Suddenly, of course, he's back on Brock's side. Lesnar immediately hits an F5 on Kurt Angle. It's like WrestleMania 19 all over again. Except it's not, because Angle this time doesn't pop up and continue to trade big moves with Lesnar. Instead, he actually stays down. He's an older guy now. Heyman looks delighted with how things are going. Corbin just totally chickens out, gets out the ring, goes to the back. And then Lesnar grabs Heyman's face and goes, look what I've done to Kurt Angle, implying I can also do it to you. Know your role and shut your mouth as well, as The Rock would say in that accent. Overall, this final segment and all the weird build up to it gets a C+. I found some of it immensely frustrating. I like the possibility of Heyman turning on Lesnar at SummerSlam. Whether it happens or not, I like that it's been introduced as a concept. So even though I didn't enjoy this, C+, because that was okay. Finally, the overall grade for this Raw from Miami, Florida, it gets a C- because, whoa, I felt stressed watching it. Heyman was stressed, Angle was stressed, Lesnar was pretty chill to be fair, but everyone seemed pretty stressed. It reminded me of just last week when I found the first episode of WCW Nitro that I ever watched, and it was all more concerned about trying to look like a not real, shoot-produced wrestling show than an actual wrestling show. It was trying to be too cool and edgy and internet. And this is kind of the impression I got from Raw. They weren't breaking the fourth wall at all, but it was more about how it is to run a wrestling show rather than the wrestling itself. And also, what the hell was that Elias and Bobby Lashley thing? Positive points, the revival, the Bayley Sasha thing I guess as well, Seth versus Drew, they're going to have a killer match at some point, and the idea that Heyman could turn on Lesnar. Those things are good, the rest was pretty shoddy. That's been it. I'm Jack from Cultaholic. Nearly forgot to do my outro. Thank you very much for watching Raw Graded. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Jack the Jobber. If you want to follow all of us, you can at Cultaholic. And if you want to check out a Patreon as well, you can at patreon.com/Cultaholic. And never forget, obviously, to join us.